Hello and welcome to the show. Today we're going to be asking the question, are expensive analog bikes dead?
We'll take a closer look at Schwalbe's radial tyre technology and ask if Santa Cruz has run out of ideas for the new Bronson.
But first, let's talk about expensive analog bikes. Do they have a future?
That's a tough one, Danny, but that's something you've been pondering since the launch of the new Trek/Plus e-bike.
Exactly. So this is Trek's kind of high pivot enduro bike that was launched last year, but with the addition of a motor and a battery.
So is it TQ motor?
TQ motor and the new larger 580 watt hour battery.
Okay, that's a big upgrade, right?
Exactly. Now you'd think that would make it more expensive, right? But when I looked into the prices, something looked out of place.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
How out of place?
Very out of place. Okay. Well, £750 out of place. So basically the top end / analog bike is £11,750.
Okay.
And the top end / plus e-bike is £11,000.
So how did they make the e-bike cheaper than the analog bike?
This is a very good question. I mean,
that's an anomaly, right?
Yeah. I don't know what's happened with Trek's pricing, but it does not look right when you look at it. Because there's a slight difference in specs, but you're paying less for more, right? I mean, that begs the question, like, who is going to spend more money on an analog bike, that expensive analog bike?
Well, actually, Danny, it begs the question, who's going to spend that kind of money on any high-end analog bike?
Yeah, I mean, I think these bikes have got a shelf life, and that shelf life is coming to an end.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, like, I was at a Specialized Enduro launch in 2019, and they raised the question then, when they launched the new Enduro, is that would anyone be riding one of these bikes without some level of assistance in 5 years' time? And that's pretty much 5 years ago.
This is we're still asking the same question now, right?
So I think they at that point, they Specialized was maybe already predicting the beginning of the end.
The Enduro is an interesting bike, to bring up actually, because when I had a little look around on the Specialized UK website, there is actually no mention of that bike. It's like a 404 page.
Has it disappeared?
There's nothing there.
Okay.
On the US website, there are two models, but they're 2023 models, and they are heavily discounted.
Okay, I mean, there could be two things going on there, right? I mean, it could be that Specialized is making a shift towards producing more and more e-bikes. I mean, we've seen that happen in the market, but it could also be that bike's long overdue an upgrade. We were actually expecting a new Enduro this year and it didn't arrive, right? So maybe
it hasn't yet.
Or hasn't. No, that's true. The year's not over. And it could just be that bike's going to come. Because I actually think that the market for high-end analog bikes is within specialist fields.
Yeah. So by that, what do you mean, like race bikes?
Exactly, all race bikes. So cross-country race bikes, enduro race bikes, downhill bikes. I think sky's the limit on pricing because let's face it, if you're racing, you want the ultimate performance that you can afford. And if that means buying a bicycle that costs twice as much as your car, then that's exactly what you should do, right? But for general riding, I'm not so sure that the high-end analog bikes got legs.
Yeah, I guess when you're talking about recreational, like trail bikes, like basically people wanting to go out on a Sunday and have fun.
Yeah.
It's a different proposition, right?
It is a different proposition. And I think it depends on where you're coming from, right? Because if you've already got a high-end analog trail bike, are you really just going to go out and buy another one that's got 1/2 degree slacker head angle and a 1 degree steeper seat angle and maybe 2 more adjustments on it? Or are you going to consider an SL e-bike or a full-powered e-bike?
Yeah, I think you're right. So such tiny incremental changes with these things.
Yeah.
It's interesting you talking about Specialized kind of pondering this 5 years ago. But I don't think they're the only brand thinking like that.
No.
We've seen White pretty much become an e-bike brand exclusively. Yeah. They do have a couple
They still have aluminium trail bikes, but there's definitely a cap to the pricing on them.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think there are other brands that could probably get rid of their analog offerings and still be like a viable business now.
So Danny, when I think about it, we could both be talking over our asses here, right?
It wouldn't be the first time.
Because the Specialized launched the Stumpjumper 15 and there's a ton of interest in it. I mean, they've got a unique story with the Genie Shark, but people were all over it. So maybe we're completely wrong about this.
Totally. And I think the other point is that there will always be kind of smaller, more niche brands that will plug that gap, won't they?
Totally.
They're not going to disappear completely, but maybe your choices might get restricted.
The thing is, let's face it, bike companies are in the bike business and they're in the business of selling bikes. And if more people are buying e-bikes and less people are buying analog bikes, they're going to shift the focus.
Yeah.
It's just as simple as that, right?
Totally. And the other thing that might be kind of, we might see a more rapid change in this is that the North American market has been, quite slow to adopt e-bikes.
Yeah, they've been behind the UK and Europe for sure.
Yeah, and we were behind Europe, Germany, and stuff as well. So it's we're seeing it already. I think when I was out there in the US in April, I saw a lot of lightweight e-bikes out there and a lot of full powers as well. And I think in certain areas they're really growing. And so as it becomes more mainstream out there, maybe that's going to really sort of accelerate this reduction in choice. But who knows?
Yeah, I mean, I have no idea.
No, we won't be dancing on the grave just yet.
No, like I said, specialist bikes, sky's the limit.
Yeah. Now we see a lot of comments that e-bikes are mopeds, right? Well, now it seems we've got some moped technology coming into the mountain bike market, yeah?
And it's not a twist grip.
No. The tyres on cars and motorcycles use what's called radial construction.
Yeah.
And I mean, why has it taken so long for somebody to introduce radial construction to bicycle tyres? And we're talking about Schwalbe here.
Yeah, we are talking about Schwalbe.
Schwalbe are calling them radial tyres, okay? I mean, they're even saying in their marketing blurb, join the radial revolution.
Yeah, but before we get into that, we should probably explain what actual radial tyre construction is. Okay, Danny, I need a laptop for this.
Go for it.
Yeah, okay. So Danny, in a radial tyre, the fibres that are baked into the rubber layers that make up the tyre casing, they run radially from bead to bead, or to think of it another way, they basically run at 90 degrees to the direction of rotation. Whereas if we compare that to a traditional mountain bike tyre, which this is, that uses a cross-ply construction. So that the layers of the tyre run diagonally at 45 degrees and they cross each other.
And that's what we see when we've been stralping corners for a day or two, you see that
exactly. And if you look at a rear tyre that's well worn and the rubber started to break down on the sidewall, you can see the crisscross pattern on the side of the tyre. This is where it gets complicated, because if you look at this image behind us of the tyre, you can see right now, it's not actually a radial construction.
No, that's the plies across each other.
They crisscross, yeah. So what Schwalbe's actually done hasn't made a true radial construction design tyre. It's basically taken like the angles from 90 degrees like that and opened them up. So in essence, it's reduced the angle between the cross plies, making them sort of more radial in nature, but it's not 100% radial tyre. And if you dig into their marketing literature, they actually state that the carcass threads are at a more obtuse angle than other tyres.
Okay. So they take a bit of license with the headlines, but you dig in and they kind of explain
Absolutely, because that's not as catchy a marketing slogan, is it?
Yeah.
Right.
What are the advantages of doing this? Why would they do it?
Well, in theory, there are advantages to be had because radial tyres can deform more easily to the terrain, so you can also get more grip and control. And according to Schwalbe, the new construction gives you a 30% bigger contact patch at the same pressure on the same size tyre. I don't know if that just means that it's going to feel like a soft tyre that squirms a lot in the corners.
Yeah, and that you actually need to run higher pressures.
Yeah. It's also claiming that if you increase your tyre pressure from, say, 20 to 30 psi, you still get a 15% larger contact patch than a traditional dual-ply tyre.
Okay.
So even if it's not true radial design, this halfway house could offer some potential benefits.
Yeah, and if we're talking about potential benefits, it's been used by some pretty high-profile racers.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're just a couple of armchair engineers here, but Piron's impressive winning margins in both Val di Sole and Leger were both on prototype versions of that tyre.
Okay.
Construction.
Yeah, so that is interesting. I mean, he dominated, right? Big margins.
6-second margin, I think, at one round. Was a 6 at one, 5 at the other. Huge margins, shitty conditions. I mean, there's a lot more to it than just the tyres he was running, right? I mean, he's an amazing rider. But hopefully we can get our hands on some of these tyres and see if they just live up to the hype.
Yeah.
Because I mean, they sound impressive.
They do. So what are the new tyres with this configuration?
To kind of celebrate the launch of the new casing, they've got a new tyre called the Shredder.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, and then you can also get the Albert and the Magic Mary with the new casings, and I'm sure they're going to have a lot more tyres to come with this technology because there's a lot of hype around it. A lot of people have been saying, is this tyre cheating? Well, we don't know because we've not tried them, but hopefully we can get some soon to test.
Yeah. So have you got any prices? Do you know
I
how much
have
they
no
cost?
idea how much they cost, Danny, but like if those tyres give me 6 seconds on a 3-minute run, they'll be worth every penny.
I'll take them too.
Yeah, totally.
So when we were talking about expensive analog bikes earlier on, the first brand really that comes to mind with boutique priced bikes is Santa Cruz, right?
Yeah.
And they have got a new Bronson out. Now, if we're talking about prices first, what's interesting is they seem to be strategically keeping the prices of their analog bikes below 10K. Now, obviously, still super expensive, but it's not as high as I thought they would, and maybe some other competitors. But yeah, so new Bronson.
So Danny, on the show, normally we like to get hands-on with the bike, but the new Bronson, neither of us have ridden it, but Guy has ridden it.
That's right, our northern correspondent has been out on it.
Yeah.
He's written a first ride for us. I've got some little quotes in a minute, but I think we should probably go over some of the details before we get into how it rides.
Big changes, right?
Oh, enormous. One of the big marketing spiels from the press release is millimeters matter.
Well, that depends on who you ask, right?
Yeah, that's what I've been saying for years, right?
Yeah, totally.
It feels like a bit of a tacit admission that they're struggling to find improvements with this bike. Now, there's a few obvious visual changes, one of which you can see behind there, that's the new shock tunnel, which Guy describes as a bird's nest, which is quite good.
Interesting. Yeah.
And also the shock kind of nestles into the down tube, whereas before it was kind of sitting more proud. There's a much larger lower link driving that shock because the shock's actually higher than it used to be. And then there's a whole load of tweaks to the Geo.
Tweaks is the key word here.
That's it, millimeters matter.
I watched the promotion video too. Yeah.
So I think the most significant of those being it's got a steeper seat angle and roughly 10 millimeter longer chainstays, depending on the size.
Because they got semi-size specific chainstays on the size range.
They're kind of unique to each size. And the other thing is the size range has changed in that they've skewed it more towards the larger sizes. They've taken away the extra small and they've added in an extra large. You're basically looking towards the sort of bigger riders, really. Yeah. The rest of the changes really are kind of around kinematics and how the bike sort of pedals and how it responds to bumps, really.
So what I noticed on the kind of PR was that I think they dropped the anti-squat at SAG from 130% to 110. It's still pro anti-squat. It's still above 100%.
Yeah, I believe so through most of the SAG.
The SAG window.
Yeah. So Guy's been riding this bike, and one of his first kind of riding impressions was that this has made a big difference to the way the bike pedals.
Positively or negatively?
I guess that depends on your priorities, like with all of this stuff, right?
Exactly.
And Guy likes pedaling. He
likes a snappy bike.
He likes a responsive bike to his inputs. He likes pedaling. He does I can't remember what it's called, but they have a
Tuesday night,
fight
Wednesday
club,
night,
isn't it? The Thursday night fight club where they
murder each other,
kill each other on a massive XC ride. So yeah, it's an efficient bike is important to him, and he doesn't like the way that the new Bronson has gone for a softer approach. So some of his energy is getting absorbed by the suspension in the pedaling, which it didn't used to be. The flip side of that, I guess, is better bump absorption. But because the bike's heavier and it's got a stickier front tyre, and then you've got this kind of lower anti-squat, I think all those things added together just make it feel a little bit more lethargic on the climbs.
Or from another perspective, it gives it more of a gravity focus.
Yeah. Exactly. But I think one of the interesting things he points out is that one he rode comes with a new Fox forks with the Grip X2 damper on it. Now that fork, we've both ridden it quite a bit now. It's got a lot of support.
Yeah.
Maybe not the most sort of sensitivity.
Yeah. I'd almost say that Fox has gone feel of the Fox fork's kind of gone back to what it used to feel like before they introduced the lube channels and the floating axles and stuff. It's got that, like, and I'm not saying it's the same in terms of which one was damping, one was friction, one was the other. I'm just saying the overall feel feels like the fork sits up.
Yeah.
And you feel it in your hands.
Yeah, you do. And because Santa Cruz has gone to I guess, a softer rear end, but the fork sits up more and is a little bit firmer, there's guys saying that there's more of an imbalance between the front and the rear on this bike.
Absolutely.
And I think that's probably the thing that really sort of stuck out for him.
And that could affect the pedaling efficiency too, right? Because the bike's rotating around the front axle rather than it just kind of being stable and staying there. Yeah.
And he also points out that maybe there's a better separation from the 5010 now, but now this bike is going more into the sort of nomad territory. Okay. So I guess this has always been a little bit of a problem with Santa Cruz bikes, is that there's a lot of models. There's a lot of kind of overlap, and like where do people find the right niche for themselves?
Niche within the niche.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd just like to say that I'm not saying that this bike hasn't evolved, because I think it clearly has, and I bet they sweated a lot of time and energy on these little details to kind of tweak it to make it more what they wanted from it. Years ago, I'd have said, yeah, millimeters matter. Now I'm much more like, actually the shims matter more and the suspension tuning matters more than the actual like a millimeter here or half a degree there, because the dynamic range of a 150 mil travel bike in terms of how you set it up is way bigger than like anything you're going to get with just like tweaking the geo a little bit.
Yeah, I think you're right, and also your body gets used to slight changes in geo as well.
You just adapt.
Exactly.
You just adapt. Yeah. So like it's. But I think it's cool that they're still progressing these bikes. But like we said earlier, they're really just like kind of messing around in the margins because the bike's already highly evolved, and it's going to be a hard sell to sell a new Bronson to someone that's already got a current one.
Yeah. Last thing I want to sort of point out is that they've actually made it slightly cheaper than the old bike. So that again feeds into what we were saying at the start. The top end model is £200 cheaper than the current one, and the range starts at just under 5k. So yeah, we've got full first ride on mbr.co.uk if you want to check out his riding impressions. Thank you very much for watching, and we want to know in the comments if you're going to be dropping a wad of cash on a high-end analog bike in the future, or whether your next bike is going to be some kind of e-bike, whether it's lightweight or full powered. We'd love to know. Thanks for watching.